The New York Knicks are extremely mediocre. Now, I could give y'all some long intro on this, but the Knicks have been a frequently talked about topic on this channel, as I am a Knicks fan. And really, the overall summary is 2020, they hired Tom Thibodeau, have a great season with no fans in the stands. Julius Randle wins Most Improved Player. RJ Barrett makes a year 2 jump. They make the playoffs. They re-sign a lot of their guys. They sign Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier. The next year, that doesn't work out. RJ starts the year really slow. Randle struggles. And now in year 3, they were linked to Donovan Mitchell for a long time. Did not get it done, though. Kept their young pieces and assets that they've been piling up in the Leon Rose era. And they signed Jalen Brunson as well, who they were targeting for a long time and want to be their point guard of the future. Now we turn to present day, and at the time I'm recording this, they are 9-10. And really, this franchise has a very apparent problem. They are not good enough to be a playoff contender, and they are not bad enough to get a high pick and really have the ability to add an elite level talent in this upcoming draft class. They have a bunch of young players, a bunch of good young players, but no one who really stands out. No one you can say, that guy, is going to be a part of my franchise for the next 10 years. He is a core piece to my team. They have good guys, though, a lot of good guys, and they have a bunch of picks and assets, but at a certain point, it really leaves the fans wondering, when are they going to use these picks and assets to do something? And the Donovan Mitchell rumors and trade possibility was when it looked like they were finally going to cash in those assets in some of their young guys to get a star. As really the Leon Rose era under him for the last 3 seasons, that's been the moral of the story. The Knicks have been decent, but overall, they've been hoarding these picks and players to eventually get a star. So that's really why he was brought in the first place, to attract stars to New York. And it hasn't happened yet. It leaves the fans in a weird spot. Now, in past years, this team has had more veterans, and the fan base has called for the young guys to play more. But this year, the team is relatively young, but you still have 3 main vets that I think should be very expendable to the New York Knicks. And those guys are Evan Fournier, who isn't even in the rotation anymore, Derrick Rose, and Julius Randle. Now, Fournier is tough because you're probably going to need to attach something to get off his contract, which is clearly a negative asset at the moment, with him not even playing on a team that really isn't that good. Now, the Knicks do have some good depth, but if you're not playing on the 17th best team in the league or whatever, you're making that much money, you're clearly not a positive asset. So Fournier is tough, but I do think he really just doesn't have a place on this team moving forward. And I think by the trade deadline, he will probably be off the roster. And Derrick Rose is someone who was so key in 2020 to their playoff run. Hit some big shots in the one playoff game they did win over the Atlanta Hawks in Game 2. And he's a favorite of Tom Thibodeau, but he's clearly lost a lot. Doesn't have much left in the tank, but I do think he could still help a playoff team. You're not going to get that much for him in a trade, but I would like to open up minutes for possibly Miles McBride, but more importantly, making sure Quentin Grimes has a spot in the rotation alongside Emmanuel Quickley, or possibly starting with Jalen Brunson, and then off the bench, you have Cam Reddish beside him. But Grimes is somebody who I think really is an important piece for the Knicks moving forward. They showed an unwillingness to put him aside a bunch of picks and RJ Barrett in those Donovan Mitchell trade talks over the summer, and they clearly value him a lot. Tom Thibodeau was a big advocate for him when he was coming out of the draft at Houston, and he's someone who has a 3-and-D skill set but can do more, and is one of the Knicks' most valuable young pieces. After originally being slotted to have a big role in year 2, he dealt with injuries, especially in the first 10 games, and really wasn't able to establish a rotation spot for himself on a Knicks team that it seemed like he most definitely would be getting minutes for. But with the injuries to Cam Reddish and the poor play of Evan Fournier, He's managed to find a way into the starting lineup, and I really do think this is what the Knicks originally wanted. And while being able to hit threes, even though he hasn't been great so far, I do think he has the skills to be more than a 3-and-D player. You know, coming out of high school, he was looked at as a point guard, and he wasn't able to be a 5-star point guard for Kansas, and he really reinvented himself at Houston, but he still does possess some of those guard skills that made him a 5-star recruit at the point guard position. He has some really good athleticism I think some people aren't aware of. If you look at some of these clips of him in high school, and he really can find guys pretty well for a 2-guard, as since being reinserted into the starting lineup for the Knicks, he's put up performances where he's had 4 assists, 5 assists, and 8 assists in a performance versus the Phoenix Suns. Grimes is a nice young piece for the Knicks, no doubt, but the real problem is they don't have a standout guy. While not having a star really in general, they don't have a young guy that really pops off the page. RJ Barrett's turned himself into a pretty good player, but he's been really disappointing to start his 4th year after getting the extension, and while his numbers will probably round out throughout the season, it seems clear he's not that star guy that will take the Knicks to the next level and really take a big leap at some point in his career. He is a good young player, I do think, though. And the Knicks have multiple guys like that. Immanuel Quickley, while he's struggled to shoot this year, throughout his career he's been a pretty good shooter, and he's really made a leap as a perimeter defender in his 3rd year in the league. And Obi Toppin continues to impress in the limited amount of minutes he's been able to get under Tom Thibodeau while backing up Julius Randle. Mitchell Robinson has turned himself into a good young center. He's not really a young guy anymore as he's in his 5th season. You also have Cam Reddish, who is a guy who has tons of talent, has been inconsistent, but so far this season has shot pretty decently, and when he's gotten minutes has, I think, done a decent job with them. He's still inconsistent as the defender. At times he's really good, at times it seems he just falls asleep. But overall this team does not have a clear direction, and Leon Rose was brought here to attract stars, and they haven't done that, and they haven't gotten a homegrown star. So what do the New York Knicks do? As I said earlier, I think what they have to do is go in a new direction with their head coach. Tom Thibodeau, all he wants to do is win the next game, and they have to focus on developing their guys more. Obi Toppin should not be getting under 20 minutes a night in his 3rd year, especially with how well he played at the end of his 2nd year. Someone else who also should have played more in their 2nd year, I think, especially in the second half of the season, was Immanuel Quickley. Now you may say, Kofi, he did play a good amount, but he really should have been starting over Alec Burks. You know, Quickley is a young guy in his 2nd year who is playing better than Burks and at least had the chance to be a long-term piece and option for the Knicks, but Tom Thibodeau opted to start Alec Burks over him after the Kemba Walker experiment did not work. And I think this really captures what's wrong with Tom Thibodeau as the Knicks coach. He has a super short-term vision, and the Knicks this season, what I think they really need to do the rest of this year is evaluate their young players, because not all of these young guys, they have a lot of them, are going to be here in the long run. They need to find out which guys are keepers and which guys are expendable. And someone like Immanuel Quickley, you saw they were shopping, The Athletic reported, you know, Quickley, Toppin, Grimes, Cam, all these guys they have, they're not going to be able to re-sign all of them. And you're never going to know if they can fully be pieces on this team unless you give them minutes and opportunities to shine. And that's more important, really, in my opinion, than just winning an extra 3 to 5 games. Maybe slipping into the play-in and losing or getting swept as the 8th seed by the Bucks or Celtics or whatever. The Knicks need to find out which of the young guys they have are long-term pieces moving forward for the rest of this season. That should be their goal, and I don't think Tom Thibodeau is the man to help them accomplish that. That's my take, and I thank y'all for watching.